This is the Ibanez PIA, and as the name suggests, it's different than the gem and the RG. But how is it different? Is this instrument for you? Let's figure that out by talking about the looks, the feel, the playability, and of course, the sound. Let's jump right in. All right, so let's talk about the looks first. Now, this instrument looks striking. You can immediately see the inlay on here, the tree of life. Even if people aren't guitar fans, they notice it immediately. They see it first, they compliment it. All right, so some more notes on this. The vine inlay. Is it hard to see with this thing on here? Well, actually, it's pretty easy. If you take a look, you can see like the leaves are the fret inlay markers. So instead of dots, you have these giant leaves. So you can see these leaves are pretty huge actually. So once you see, oh, these are the fret markers, it's really easy to see where you are. And it's actually kind of difficult then to transition to a different guitar. Like this one, for example, with the tiny dots. See, it's much harder to see. And then when you look at the both of these, you can see the huge difference, the white quote-unquote leaves versus the tiny little dots on the regular Prestige. And so once you get used to the vines, it's harder to go back. And of course, then there's the Petal cutout, which is different than the iconic monkey grip. That doesn't actually get too many comments on it, surprisingly. Like, I know the monkey grip, of course, they see the hand cut out. They're like, oh, what's that? But this, not too many people comment on it. Of course, this also might be a good time to mention that this is my guitar, and I didn't get it just for the looks. On my guitar journey, what got me into playing guitar in the first place were two bands, basically, Green Day and their Guitar Tone. I know, I was a teenager. And Steve Vai, and he really showed me that the guitar can be the main melody, the lead line, so to speak. That's what really made me decide to take the plunge. And of course, I can't play like him, but hopefully you find all this information valuable. And so then also part of the looks and jumping into the feel is the body is kind of rounded. It doesn't have that edge. It doesn't have those edges like on an RG. So I find that because the body is a bit more like rounded, that you get more like the Stratocaster kind of feel, which is great if you like that kind of thing. But if you're playing sitting down and you're more used to like the telly or the RG kind of sharper edges to keep it anchored on your body, you can find it kind of like slipping out a little bit, which isn't a huge deal. It's just if you're not used to that, it's one tiny little thing. And I do want to point this out too, because if you're getting a guitar like this, like a 24 fret shred machine, like every little thing that's going to stand in the way of you playing quickly or technically or like difficult stuff, that might be worth noting. Also in terms of feel and rounded edges, you can see on the back of the bottom horn, it has that kind of cutaway right here, which is really nice if you're playing shredding like this. It gets out of your way. Surprisingly also different from an RG is the access to the 24th fret. Somehow this curved body, I think it might come in a bit more. This is based off of feel. It's a little bit harder to get to the 24th fret. It is pretty easy, super easy to shred up there, don't get me wrong. But if you're doing like arpeggio kind of stuff, like right up here, somehow, for some reason, just on an RG, it's a little bit easier. And I also noticed, I don't think if you can kind of see it, but the forearm kind of cutaway is a little differently sculpted than on an RG. So that might matter to you, maybe a little bit, maybe not. It still feels pretty good. So it's not really a big difference, but it is a difference nonetheless. On the PIA, it's more towards the bottom of the body, versus on the Prestige, it's more closer towards the bridge, you can see right here. So you feel that when you're playing standing up. So on the PIA, it looks pretty sculpted towards the bridge, but that's also because there's that pedal like hole. Like when you're playing standing up, you can feel there's less of a carve away. So the body will angle slightly more out when you rest your arm on it, depending on how low you have it. If you have it higher up, that's not going to really be any difference. But if you have it more like this, then you definitely will feel that difference. So that's like a minor thing. But if you're more used to like the RG, then that's just something to watch out for. Because it's these little things in feel that might really affect how you play in a live environment where your adrenaline is flowing and every just little thing can throw you off. Also in terms of feel, the neck is a little thicker than the typical like Super Wizard like you'd find on the Prestige or on the J Custom. It is a little thicker, although you still have that 16.9 inch fretboard radius. So I actually grabbed for this instrument in different situations than I would for my J Custom or for my Prestiges. Like if I want a slightly thicker neck for more all-day comfort, I would grab for this. Versus if there's like this one shred part where I need to get, no matter what, And it doesn't really matter that I'm going to be playing it all day, because I'm just going to be playing it for like 5 minutes or a few minutes for like recording or for this one song. Then I would go for like a Prestige or a J Custom. Not to say that this can't shred, because this is absolutely built for shredding. You know, the stainless steel frets feel fantastic. You know, they feel just like steel does, super smooth, durable. They haven't let me down so far, and I've had this for like, I don't know, over a year or so now. And in terms of also the fretboard, one thing that you've probably been waiting to hear about is the scalloping on the frets right here. The 21st through 24th frets on this guitar are scalloped. And so normally on a super strat like shredder, you don't really notice any kind of resistance or anything. If you're playing up there, you can still do your bends and all that. But when you play this guitar, you definitely notice that there's less resistance when you're trying to do like your bends or play up there. It's really easy, and it's actually pretty nice. You do end up feeling it when you switch to another guitar then, and you're playing up there like, oh, there's actually wood over there. I haven't noticed how pushing too hard or too soft would affect the intonation when playing on those scalloped frets too. I generally try not to press too hard when I'm fretting notes to begin with. Like, I'm not the most gentle when I am fretting notes, but I do try to conserve kind of that hand strength. And so then to me, it's been completely natural. If anything, I wish more of the frets were scalloped, because I do find myself like on the 20th fret doing bends, and I think, oh man, if only this one was scalloped too. So overall, to summarize the feel, I'd say, even though it's like a 24 fret double cutaway, super shredder, super strat kind of thing, I do reach for this in different scenarios than my RGs. And that's, you know, not a bad thing, because there's still some overlap. Like if I brought one or the other to a live situation or to a remote recording session, it wouldn't really be a big deal, because there is still that overlap. You still got the 24 frets, you still got the Ibanez playability, all that stuff. I guess one other thing in terms of feel and features is the output jack right there. You can see it has the angled output jack. So when you stand with it, it's at this angle instead of down here. Now, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to level with you. I prefer the output jack to be down here, because when you're playing sitting classical style like this, with this angled jack, it will actually interfere with your right leg. And so that's a little annoying. So this guitar is more for playing standing up. You can, of course, play it sitting down in the standard position like this, but I find for the real like technical parts, I do prefer like this. So that is one peeve. That's the biggest thing I dislike about this guitar. And other features, it does have the Ibanez edge. Ibanez trims I find in general are fantastic. I do have this one blocked because I do prefer that. So I guess take this in a grain of salt. I haven't played around with this particular trim, but Ibanez edge trims that I've used in the past have been good. And also it's got this kind of treble pull thing for like volume control. And it works. It does make a little bit of a difference. I almost never use it. So I'm not really that kind of player, but if you are and you're doing a lot of like volume stuff up and down, rest assured that it works as advertised, I guess. All right, so getting into sound, this guitar sounds really good. The pickups are high quality, really great. It has the single coil in the center, you know, typical Ibanez HSH configuration. You know, it's really weird. I find there's a lot of harmonics in these pickups that are very pleasing. The pickups aren't like super high output. They're not low output by any means, but they're not like super ultra high active output. So they're pretty usable passive pickups. I find I can reach for this guitar for basically any style actually, especially if you manipulate the tone knob. But like for metal stuff, which is what I primarily do most of the time, you can leave everything up all the way. And it works for rhythm, for leads. It's pretty usable. Of course, obviously it does like the Steve Vai shredder stuff, but I'm not gonna sit here and claim that I can play like him. I definitely can't. The man's a virtuoso. And on the subject of these pickups too, you can see they have all these like engravings and these patterns in them, and they're multi-layered. And so that's pretty cool. But I find when I'm like playing, you can, sometimes your fingers can touch it and like kind of catch on it a little bit. Again, like not a huge deal, but it is like a little odd, like just slightly a little annoying. All right, so to summarize the likes on this guitar, I like the sound of it. I like the playability, the little extra features like the cutaway on the lower horn here. The frets feel great, the wood is resonant, and of course it looks great. So, would I recommend this guitar? The short answer is no. The long answer is yes, and let me explain. So like I mentioned earlier, This guitar is a little different than like an Ibanez RG or Gem. So there are significant enough differences that you could kind of justify, like, okay, I'll get this guitar instead of that one, or this guitar to supplement that one. But at the end of the day, it is a 24 fret super strat shredder guitar, and there are a lot of those on the market right now. So unless you're like a Vi fan, or you definitely know, okay, these pickups have the frequency response I need, or you really want the features and this is within budget, you could just get an Ibanez Prestige, like around the 2000 USD mark. That's a fantastic choice too. Or you could look at other brands like ESPs like E2, maybe ESP is in your price range if you're looking at this. If not, you could look at the LTDs. There's the Ibanez Premiums. There's Schecter. They're making a lot of good stuff, a lot of shreddy stuff too. Like the list goes on. And all those other alternatives, like the lower cost ones, are not going to have this quality and this sound, but they will be close. Like those Prestiges are gonna be, if you get a good one, like 95 to like 97% there. Or maybe if you get like a bad one, then it's gonna be like 90% there to get you here. And then you got to ask yourself, well, do I really need like that much of a better guitar to get there? And if you're like a working musician or like a professional, or you're like playing in bands all the time and like music is your income, your industry, then you might want to actually invest in a good sounding quality tool to get you there. The higher quality stuff is going to get less in your way when you're trying to record or play difficult passages or just play anything. And so that's when you might consider this, and you would look into it. And if you are looking for a higher end instrument, I would say yes, definitely go for this. If this has the features you're looking for, it won't disappoint you. So in conclusion, this is a fantastic guitar, but also consider too, if you're a professional musician and you're doing this for a living, you might need to save some budget for other things, like maybe plugins, or maybe recording equipment, or maybe gas money for getting to the next gig on the tour, things like that. In which case it might actually make more sense to go for a Prestige instead of spending much more money on getting this full-blown thing. So overall, I absolutely love this guitar. It's the guitar of one of my guitar heroes. It sounds great. I can always count on it. It's helped me through some difficult parts of some songs. And I think this is going to be one of those guitars that I just hold on to and keep. Now, did this answer the questions you had about the guitar? Would you like to know anything else? Let me know in the comments down below. I love talking about guitars with you guys. Just love music, love guitars. And next up is the sound demo. So be sure to stick around for that. And as always, peace.